Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Week 5 is almost here. This is the Friday Q&A, the lineup builder show, where I take questions from my chat on twitch.tv, where I'm live 6 days a week. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's a link down below. Just go click it. Come see us. It's easier for me to get to know you on the live stream. But if you just need to watch the videos on demand here on YouTube, I appreciate you guys showing up week after week, day after day. And you guys have been extremely kind and free with the likes and the as many subs as we've picked up since football season started. So thank you very, very much. We have that 10% rule on the channel, looking for, 10% of the views to turn into likes. So if this video gets 2,000 or 20,000 views, we need 2,000 plus likes on this video. Leave me a comment down below. Visit us over on Twitch. As always, this show brought to you by EstablishTheRun.com. Every single Friday, they have some of the best content in the daily fantasy industry. They do now have great projections as well that are made by Mike Leone and Drew Dinkmeyer. They have great articles, whether you're playing cash games, whether you're playing tournaments, whether you just want information. They're like The Athletic, but for fantasy and daily fantasy, specifically sports. Some really great content from some really smart guys. Behind the paywall over there, there is a link down below to EstablishTheRun.com. Just hit show more on the description and you'll find your way there. But here we are with the chat. I'm going to take questions on whatever they have to ask. Probably things that aren't 1v1. Should I play this guy or that guy? More, as I've said before, we're kind of coming in for a landing, right? We talk about things for the last 45 minutes right before kickoff on Twitch live every single Sunday on the Anti-Tinkercast. It's not for you guys not to tinker. It's so that I don't tinker with my lineups. So we try to stay a little bit broad here on Fridays, like strategy questions, game selection questions, lineup optimizer type questions, range questions. Let's talk about some wide receivers or running backs in these certain price points. And we try to get after it every single week to make the best decisions that we can. And I'm going to preface this once again by saying a couple of things. One, I will never get 100% of the answers right. Okay, that's one. I'm going to be wrong about things from time to time. I spend an awful lot of time researching. I obviously have my own blind spots and my own biases towards certain players, or for whatever reason. We all have them. It's something that we all bring to the table with us every single week. I also, just like anybody else who plays this game, nobody wins every single week or every single slate that they play daily fantasy. This is a game where 85% of the people who play on DraftKings lose money. So if you're somebody who's playing casually, keep it casual, play for fun, get yourselves a sweat, try and win some money. If you're trying to play very seriously, you have to play with different rules, bankroll management rules. Obviously, game selection is key. Run your things through a bankroll tracker, find out what you do well, what you do poorly, do the things that you do well a lot more, do the things that you're doing poorly or leaking way less. We're all going to have winning weeks. We're all going to have losing weeks. The point is, at the end of the year, you've won more than you lost, if that is your goal, to build a bankroll. So let's bring in the chat. Let's talk about everything that they want to talk about and figure out what we got. What would be the opinion on 3 running backs and a big QB in tournament or in cash? I'm always for volume. That's you're never going to hear me say anything different than that. I'm going to center my plays both in cash and in tournaments around guys who are high volume running backs if I'm going to be playing them. I don't play as many players across my 150 millionaire maker lineups as most other people do. I kind of focus in on the players that I want, and I try to overweight the field. Is Eric Ebron cash game viable against Philadelphia? Yeah, I think at the price he is, he's probably the lowest priced tight end on DraftKings that I would go in terms of cash game play. There's some guys that are cheaper that I think are fine for tournaments and are going to be less than 5%. So if you want to overweight the field on them, go for it. But typically speaking, I'm going to stick around that range. That's what I'm going to do. Viable 3K receivers other than Olamide Zacchaeus. Jeff Smith, if that Jets game stays on the slate, I think is another viable guy. Ran a ton of routes, was out there for a bunch of snaps. Obviously, he's a little bit injury dependent. Guys that are in front of him, but logged like 9 targets in that Thursday night game would be another 3K guy. Am I opposed to Davis and Gurley in the same lineup for a GPP? No. Typically speaking, I'm not going to allow a running back from the same game, right? To be in a lineup. I will make exceptions in certain situations. So if you would have to be building a lineup where you're saying, I think that Carolina is so bad against running backs, and that Atlanta, this game is going to be close. This is the story you're telling to build that lineup, right? To yourself, whatever. This game is either going to play very close, where Gurley is going to remain an option around the goal line, and they're going to score 25 plus points, which means he's going to have multiple chances inside the 10 and inside the 5-yard line. And or Atlanta's going to get up really, really big. Because if you think that Atlanta's going to be playing from behind, you should not have Gurley and Davis in the same lineup. But if you're building, this game's going to be close and it's going to be high scoring, or I think Atlanta's going to, blow their doors off and get up 14 in the first half, then Gurley might have something to do with that. So you got to tell that story to yourself. Thoughts on James Robinson and cash? I think there's a lot of running backs that you could use as the third running back in a lineup. So if we're going to take a look over at DraftKings real quick. Oh, look, there are your 2 cash game running backs. Yeah, that's pretty much what you're going to do. Those are your 2 cash game running backs. See, they're right there. Him and him right there. Those are the 2 guys. We're using those 2 guys. And I don't say we like we're the only ones that are going to be doing it. Literally everybody is going to have those 2 guys in their lineups because they're the 5-box running backs. They fill everything that we need to fill from a checkbox perspective. They get great goal line usage. They have high team totals. They're at home. They're favored. They're everything. 20 plus touches, projectable. All those sorts of things that we look for every single week are included in these 2 guys, and they're 7,868. Everybody's going to play them. 50-50s this week. I think CEH could be 60 to 65%, and I think Zeke will be 70 to 75%. So everybody is going to play those 2 guys. If you're playing 3 running backs in cash, and I believe that you should be playing 3 running backs in cash, I think that the other guys are going to be guys like maybe James Conner, 5-box running back playing at home against Philadelphia. I think that James Robinson, not a 5-box running back because he's not playing at home, also an underdog in this game, but game flow independent. If they're behind, they're going to be throwing it to him. They get him a lot of touches, and Houston is not very good on defense. They get gashed by opposing running backs. He does have a good floor ceiling sort of combo. I kind of like him better on FanDuel with his price over there as opposed to what his price is on DraftKings, because I think there are better plays that are cheaper. Maybe somebody like Kareem Hunt. Mike Davis, I think, will be the most popular of the group because of how utilized he's been in the 2 weeks without Christian McCaffrey in that lineup. 15 targets in the 2 weeks as that he's been the starter, including 13 and 16 carries on the ground with Reggie Bonnafon there. And now Bonnafon's out. We may see 95% of snaps at running back on Carolina played by Mike Davis, and 90% or 95% plus of the running back touches on Carolina this week could go to Mike Davis as well against a team that can't stop running backs from catching the ball. And that is his number 1 skill set. And when he took over for CMC in the 4th quarter in week 2, he got 8 targets as well. So I was not really expecting to be utilized in this manner, but he's shown that that's just how they're going to use him as long as CMC is not an option. And he's done really well. It's not like he's been a bad running back. If you look at PFF's elusive ratings, he's the most elusive running back in the league right now with with 30 or more carries. Guys that have like 4 or 5 carries have, a wide range of variance in there. If you break like 1 tackle, your elusive rating goes through the roof. But like anybody with any sort of volume, his elusive rating is higher than any of them. I think we're going to see a lot of David Johnson as well at 5,200. Team total of 30 and a half. Let's go find out. I don't want to misquote it because it may have moved. So I'm going to look over here on Fantasy Labs. We're going to look at their Vegas. This is in front of the paywall thing. Texans. 30.25 is their team total. I'll bring it up here. 30.25 is their team total. It's basically held. It was 30.5. It's down 0.2, whatever. Game total of 54 points. So, and they're favored, and they're at home, and I don't think he's going to get 20 touches, but he might get 18 touches. He is going to be included in the pass game. He does get the majority of the inside the 5 carries on this team. I think that Davis and Johnson will be the 2 most popular, and I think that there's maybe 3 or 4 other guys that you could sprinkle in there. Robinson being one, Connor being another. Where like if you play them, I don't think that you're wrong, right? So there's a lot of other running backs you could play as the 3rd guy. Again, this is another week where if you cannot project 65 touches out of the 3 running backs you're playing, if you look at your 3 running backs and you're like, All right, he's going to get 15. He's going to get 16. I really like the matchup here. He's going to get 20. You need to start over, right? You just need to start over. Favorite running back 5K and under? Gibson. He's 5K. FD 14-person friends tournament. Okay, so like you're doing like your home fantasy league. Thoughts on a Lamar, Hollywood Boyd, or a Higgins stack and Zeke Cowboys D correlation? Okay, so running back and defense don't necessarily correlate as much as they correlate on a narrative sense, right? That if a team is winning by a lot, then the defense should be in position to do some good things. And that's true, right? So if a team's winning by a lot, the running back should also be running a lot. But like sometimes that's not how it works out. So it's not as strong a correlation as I think we think that it is. It's more narrative-based correlation as opposed to actual correlation. Obviously, quarterback, wide receiver, quarterback, pass catcher are the best correlations that there are. So for a 14-man tournament, I don't think that you really need to go overboard like we talk about on the FanDuel first look of going, okay, I want a quarterback. I want one or two players that are linked to the quarterback. I want a bring back player and I want a secondary stack. I don't think that you need to do that for a 14-man tournament. You're going to build what we call a leagues lineup, which is essentially a cash game lineup with slightly more correlation. Correlation is not necessary for cash. You want to target players that have really high floors, but also a solid ceiling expectation, touchdown expectation, or a chance of a 25-point game. But you want to focus on getting as much points per dollar as you can, and sometimes you just don't get correlations when you do that. So a couple of good points per dollar guys this week would be Mike Davis and like Robbie Anderson. So if I'm playing in a leagues lineup, I might want to go with Teddy Bridgewater in a lineup like that to just force a little bit more correlation, because you do have to finish first in that as opposed to just finishing the top 50%. But you don't need to go all out with it. You don't even need a double stack. I'm just using guys this week to win a 10 or a 15-man game. You just need a little bit more correlation than cash, but you don't need to overly correlate like we try to do in these really massive large field tournaments. Ebron, the best lowest dollar tight end at 4K, might be worth paying up for. Yeah, I think this is a pay up week at tight end. That's what I'm saying. We've been talking about that all week. Like all the value at tight end, or not value, all the plays that are probably going to show up in whatever projections you use are probably the top guys. George Kittle going up against Miami, coming off of a 15 catch game where none of the wide receivers in that team are extremely healthy. Kelsey, who historically the last 3-4 years has torched the Raiders, is going up against the Raiders in a game where the Chiefs have the highest team total on the week at 34.5. So this could be a bust out game for Kelsey or a ceiling possible game for Kelsey. Mark Andrews, we know all about him. Darren Waller, we know all about him, especially this year. The only game that he is not, or kind of laid an egg, was the game against New England. We know what New England likes to do defensively is take away your favorite toy on offense. And it was clear that the Raiders' favorite toy is Darren Waller. So they just bracketed him and made you go somewhere else, and GG. Nobody else seems to be able to do that. And so with all the injuries that they've sustained, he's getting 8, 16, 12 targets at 5,900. I think that he's in play. Zach Ertz apparently is only getting 1 yard average depth of target right now. Higbee is only running snaps on 40 or 50% of his routes. I think that he is only a tournament option, not a cash game option. That's the difference between cash and tournament. A cash game option would be somebody like Darren Waller, who has a really high target floor and a really high catch floor. So if he does not score a touchdown, he still has the ability to get you like 16.8 DraftKings points, which is always going to help you in cash. You just want to pile up as many points as possible as a floor in your cash game lineups. Higbee, running as few snaps as he runs, running as few routes as he runs per quarterback dropback, has a 4, 5, 2, 4 target expectation where unless he scores multiple touchdowns like he did in week 2, he's probably going to put up a single digit score because this offense is not running through the tight end at all or anywhere close to the way that it was down the stretch last year when Higbee was an absolute league winner for you in season long, or a week winner for you if you were playing him and just mashing him into lineups on DraftKings. Dalton Schultz has been outstanding at 4,800. rip all my Higbee shares. I'm going to say that all year, so get used to it. Just deal, because I'm less sad. I don't think that the Cowboys are going to be playing from behind this week, much like they have for each of the last 3 weeks. In the 240 minutes that the Cowboys have played this year, they have been in the lead 2% of the time. That's not a lot. Not a lot of minutes. That's like 5 minutes of game time that they've been playing from ahead. So extra targets, obviously, with like 58, 57 pass attempts. So it's a very realistic possibility that Dalton Schultz could only get like 5 or maybe 6 targets in this game. But again, he's like 1,000 cheaper than Higbee, and his usage in and around the red zone and end zone has been tremendous. So Hurst with Julio out has a higher target percentage that he should see. Evan Ingram against Dallas and seeing a ton of targets, I think, is going to be extremely viable for cash. And then we talked about Ebron. So that's essentially all the tight ends that I believe you should or will see in cash games this week. Would it be a good idea to identify 5 or 6 cheap value guys like the Wizard of Oz, Zacharias, LaVisca, Tate, Jeff Smith, cap them at 15% so you don't burn all your GPP lineups? You can. Again, that's all salt to taste. That's it. A lot of this stuff for GPPs and allocations, there's no like, it's not like there's only one way that you can win, right? There are people, I've won a lot in tournaments over my career, like a lot, and more than my share maybe, in terms of how many tournaments I've won across how many different sports. And there's people that have won a lot using completely different methodology than I use. So my process works for me. There are different processes that work for other people. Some people are, they win by playing 2 to 4 quarterbacks a week, and that's it. I play about 8 quarterbacks, maybe 9 quarterbacks a week, and that's what I do. Some guys spread it out around 15 quarterbacks. They're like, I don't care who the quarterback is. It's just an access to get me stacks. And the same with value plays. I personally look to overweight the field on the plays that I feel are the best plays. That is essentially my tournament philosophy in a nutshell. So if I think that this play that's a value play is very good, I'm not just going to say, well, here's a bunch of value plays that are okay, and I'm just going to try and get 10% of each of them and worry, well, if I don't hit, then I'm not going to win. I'm probably going to get 30 or 40% of that one dude and look at it from the other angle. If this guy hits the way that I think that he's going to hit, if he just does well enough, right? Like, let's use JJ Nelson from a few years ago. I was really high on Nelson when he was 3K. And I'm doing that just to not, again, it's kind of a Johnny Widget thing, where he was 3K on the Cardinals, and I was like, he's in line to get 8 or 9 targets. And if you give me a 3K wide receiver who projects to get 8 or 9 targets, and you tell me before lock, right? We have to make decisions at the decision point. The decision point is lock. I don't care what happens after lock. But if you come from the future and tell me before lineups lock on Sunday morning, hey, that 3K wide receiver that you kind of are going back and forth on, he's going to get 9 targets today. Probably going to have 40% of that guy. Right? Because if he gets 9 targets, he's probably going to get me 12 or 14 points in the meat of the bell curve. And there's an outside possibility he gets me 25 fantasy points. And if that 3K guy gets me 20 to 25 fantasy points, and I have in 40% of my lineups, I'm probably going to win GPPs, especially if that guy is only on 5 to 10% of lineups overall. So I'm going to 3 or 4x the field on those players because that's how I play. And I understand if you don't have that same sort of tolerance for the variance that comes along with that, but I'm not trying to come in, 400th in the Millionaire Maker. I'm trying to come in first. And to do that, you kind of gotta make some business decisions. Is Deontay Johnson cash game viable? I think so. Based on projections, he does look like he is, I don't want to say a safe play. I don't like that, but I think that he has enough volume to pay off. He will be guarded by Darius Slay, and I know how much you guys love avoiding Darius Slay. I think that Darius Slay could make him a little bit more inefficient this week with those targets. Maybe they go away from him a little bit more. So instead of 12 targets, he gets like 9 or 10. Maybe instead of catching 7 or 8 of those 10 targets, he catches like 6 or 7. But 7 catches for 70 yards is still 14 points on DraftKings, and that's without him getting into the end zone. So if you want to play a tournament play that's going to avoid Darius Slay, Juju Smith-Schuster plays in the slot. Darius Slay never goes to the slot. If you think that he's going to dissuade Ben to throw the ball to the outside where Deontay plays, then play Juju. But I think he's fine on cash. I don't remember voting for Slay. I just swear to God, there's gonna be 10 people in the YouTube replies. So, what about Slay? He's fine. Stop freaking out about cornerbacks. Like, every team has a cornerback. Some of them are really good. Some of them are above average, and they might, okay. So if Deontay Johnson, to use Mike Clay's words here, right, the wide receiver cornerback matchup guru, he has Deontay Johnson, I think, go check on ESPN. I think his projection on ESPN, which is full PPR but without bonuses, is somewhere around 13.8. And he said that, yeah, it's factored in that he's going to be matched up on Slay. He's like, maybe if he wasn't going to be matched up on Slay this week, he'd have like a projection of like 14.6. Right? So it would be 14.6, but now he's going to be guarded by Slay, so his projection is 5. I think that people imagine if you saw a squirrel in the road, right? This is the analogy. You're driving, you see a squirrel in the road. You have two choices. You can slightly steer a little bit to avoid the squirrel, or you can jerk the steering wheel and crash into a goddamn tree. All you guys who are like, oh my God, Slay! Furr! Steer off a cliff because Darius Slay's in the road. Just veer around him a little bit. That's all you got to do. Teddy Two Gloves for cash, I think, is certainly cash game viable at 5,900 on DraftKings. I know that his price on FanDuel is also not too exorbitant. He's good for tournaments too. You can pair him. There's 3 viable targets to pair him with in your stacks, whether it's Mike Davis, who I will include in my Teddy stacks, Anderson and DJ Moore, who are seeing essentially the same market share of the target volume there, with Robbie Anderson getting the safer. This is weird. Okay, this is peak 2020 right here. Robbie Anderson, think about what goes through your mind when you think about Robbie Anderson as a fantasy wide receiver. Okay? Robbie Anderson, deep threat, long ADOT, a lot of air yards, long average depth of target, right? Now think about DJ Moore. Short to intermediate routes, easily convertible targets to catches, about a 23, 24%, 22 to 24% target market share of targets. And that's who he's the safe guy who easily converts catches to targets. Let's go over to NFL Savant. Robbie Anderson, 25% of the targets. DJ Moore, 23% of the targets, which is what he sat on last year. DJ Moore has a much higher percentage. I think 30, don't quote me on this, 38 or 43% of the total air yards, right? For the Panthers. That's absurd. And he's only caught 56% of the targets that have been thrown his way, while Robbie Anderson has less air yards and a lower ADOT than DJ Moore and has caught 77%. Cats and dogs living together. We're completely upside down. And that may correct itself as time goes on, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe Anderson just has a better rapport. But they're being utilized completely differently this year than before. Thoughts off Freeman in a GPP for leverage? Ew. I'm not going to do that. If you want to do it, fine, right? If you think that that the Giants are going to play from ahead in this game, right? Then I'm fine with it. I personally don't think the Giants are going to play from ahead. And I'm not building any line. I will not be building any lineups that project the Lions being up, or the Giants being up 10 this weekend, which is what they would need to do in my opinion, for Freeman to there's another path to Freeman crushing, right? Maybe they get a couple of end zone PIs and Freeman pounds in from the 1 yard line, right? Maybe. I can't see any volume paths to go. Is Zacchaeus a reasonable punt for DK Cash? Most definitely. If Julio's out, here's your if-then statement. If Julio out, Zacchaeus is the play. Again, get your Giants exposure from playing the defense on the opposite team. In some universe, I don't get it. Out for life on AJ Green? No, I don't never again players. That's not my style. You know, that's not what I'm going to be. I do think that T. Higgins is for real, though. I think he's quite good. And I think that Tyler Boyd does a very, very good job at his job. And he does better at his job when AJ Green's on the field. And I think T. Higgins is also benefiting from having those other guys. Even Drake? Yeah, even Drake. I don't never again players. That's not what I do, right? I'll never again in the situation that they're currently in, but if Chase Edmonds is suddenly out against a soft defense and Arizona's at home, probably going to go back to Drake, guys. Never rule anybody out in daily fantasy. Always have a short memory with these things. Everything is situational. So if he's the only back and looks like there's a path to like 90+% of the snaps and 90+% of the running back touches, then I'm going to go there. You know who else is somebody who we've never agained? And I think people have, hate the fact that he was, somebody that we've played a bunch and all the metrics lean that way and nobody wants to go there. Hi. Logan Thomas has suffered Haskins-induced inefficiency. Haskins only completed 50% of the targets that have gone to his targeted tight ends this season at an average yards per throw of 3.7. Kyle Allen in this same offense with the same head coach last year when targeting his tight end completed 65% of passes with about double 6.8 yards per attempt. Sorry. So if you want to leverage the field, because Logan Thomas is going to have about 2% of people on him this week. If you want to say, I'm not getting off, I'm going to cash in, go for it. If you're never getting Logan Thomas, go ahead, never again him. I'm just giving you the stats and what things are. I'm not telling you to play him. I'm just saying, going with a divorce on a fantasy football player, you need to be thinking with your money and not your heart. And I think people have had their hearts hurt a couple of times this year. And, this ain't about that. It's about money. It's about greed. I will play anybody in a high volume situation that looks like they could make me money on the week. So don't divorce players. Admit your mistakes in situations, right? We do that every single Monday on the recap video. But yeah. That's a long highlighted message. What does this say? Am I okay with CEH and Zeke along with QB stacks this week? Usually exclude the running back, quarterback double stacks, maybe bring back stack. I think that it's okay. With Zeke, I'm probably going to disallow this week because I think both teams are going to play so much from ahead that I'm probably not going to, unless I completely onslaught a game, right? So like if I think that Dallas is going to score like 45 points and Zeke and Dak and Amari and Schultz are all going to score, like I might onslaught that game with 4 players from the same game. Same goes for the Chiefs. The Chiefs have the highest team total. If you think they're going to score 42 points, if you think they're going to score 5 touchdowns and Patrick's going to spread it around to all of them and 100 yards for, let's say 8 catches for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns for Kelsey and 120 yards and a touchdown for Tyreek Hill and 130 scrimmage yards and a touchdown for CEH and a bunch of touchdown passes, 3-4 touchdown passes for Mahomes. If you can build that game script, yeah, I think that they're viable from an onslaught point of view. But those hit very, 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 very rarely. Does Labs have an application that can review winning lineups, ownership, and past competition? That's usually people do that. I know that, again, I appreciate the toss because that's a good one. Adam Levitan over at Establish the Run did a whole piece on reviewing Millionaire Maker lineups, has all the data from every Millionaire Maker and went over in a granular way, looked at all the teams that have won the Millionaire Maker, what they had in common, what percent, kind of like we went over on the showdown video that I did, the how to win on single game showdown. He did that for Millionaire Makers. Go over to ETR, search for that article from Adam Levitan, and you'll find it. And that's why when you hear me say I set the total lineups at or total percentage for a lineup at like 140, the vast majority of Millionaire Maker winning lineups have had a cumulative ownership percentage of less than 140 total percentage points. So that's why overall percentage is more important to me than this guy is going to be 25% owned, I must fade him. No, you don't have to make that decision. It's more about your cumulative lineup percentage and not that. You need squirrel shirts. God damn it. I have no squirrel merch. Exclamation point merch in the chat though. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's a little bar down below that has our little Teespring stuff, coffee mugs, phone wraps, phone cases, sweatshirts. The sweatshirts are super comfy, and t-shirts. And we're gonna have a new merch drop coming very soon with some new Smiz Gang merch. Need mosquito shirts? F those mosquitoes. Lately it's been under 100%, right? Because lately it's been team stacks. But again, those still fit under 140. And if you tell it to max at 140, you're gonna get some that are under 100. And the other reason that it's been lower recently, and we kind of talked about this, right? Pricing on running backs is extremely cheap on DK this year for whatever reason. And FanDuel pricing has been even softer than DK. Every week that I do the FanDuel first look, a couple people in chat take the lineup and they throw it into DraftKings. Like this week, it is 4K over. So like my lineup that I make on the FanDuel video, like this would cost you 4K over the cap on DK. One week it was like 6,500 over the cap on DK. So what does that do? Right? From a percentage in tournaments perspective. This week, as I said, there will be 4 running backs that I think will be more played than anyone else. They are Ezekiel Elliott, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Mike Davis. Those 3 guys are going to carry the bulk of it. We've seen this a couple weeks ago with John Taylor, where he was like 40%. We've seen Ezekiel Elliott be 35+%. We've seen it with a lot of different guys, right? Where like there's 3 running backs that are 30% plus. Well, you know what that does? You can't play, they all can't be 30%. So what it's doing is it's holding down the percent on guys like James Conner. Home favored, 20 touches, usage in the passing game inside the 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 weeks ago, he was in one of my tournament challenging lineups where I came in second in that queue, and he was like 3% owned. Nick Chubb that week, also home favored, inside the 5, not involved in the passing game, all those sorts of things. 4-box running back, 3% owned. So what I've been looking to do is identify guys like that who I think are good plays on the week from volume perspectives, from however you want to look at it, that aren't those 3 highest owned players. Yeah, Miles Sanders was one. He was like 40%. No, don't fade those 3. You don't have to fade those 3, right? That's not what I'm saying to do. You don't need to fade the high guys. You don't need to fade the highest percentage guys. If you're mass multi-entry, right? I'm speaking as somebody who builds a lot of lineups. We can talk about this from the perspective of a 3 lineup or a single entry, and how to deal with it with a lineup builder, because I know that a lot of you are using lineup builders for the first time because you've told me so. So yeah, Aaron Jones last week, Joe Mixon, highest scoring running back on the week, was like 5% in tournaments because he wasn't one of the 3 guys. Because of the prices, and it's so easy to just play the best player, everybody just slamming in the best guys, which is great. And if in a week where if Clyde Edwards-Helaire has 25 or 30 points this week, and Ezekiel Elliott has 25 or 30 points this week, the cash line in 50-50s is not going to be 140. It's going to be like 175 because they're going to be extremely hot. Hey, somebody bought a hoodie. Hey, thank you. Appreciate that. Anonymous bought a zip hoodie. I got to move that around and make sure it works. I'm so happy that that works now. Struggling using the optimizer. I'm a computer moron. You're not a computer moron. It's more about figuring out how to make it do what you want. If you go to the How to Win playlist here on the YouTube channel, you guys will find great content on how to use the lineup optimizer, there's a video on how to import the CSV or how to edit lineups that are already imported. All that stuff's already up there. And I know you guys want me to do walkthroughs on the RG lineup builder because I have mostly ones on DR. You want me to do one on labs. And it's really hard for me to work that into the content schedule because, again, 8 videos a week, 6 streams a week, it would choke the YouTube channel. There's no way that I can just constantly put out all this content on top of other content. But there is a possibility, and again, COVID is opening up this window for us, that with no Thursday night football game this week, I may be able to do a lineup builder show on Tuesday's stream and get that posted to YouTube in place of the Thursday night showdown video. So that may be a thing next week because there's not going to be a Thursday night game because they've moved the Bills. The Bills were on Thursday night. They moved that to Sunday. So I have a hole in the content schedule for next week. So I'm trying to get a guest to come on the show and do another How to Win video using a lineup optimizer because I know that so many of you are new to using optimizer and I want to help out with that. So we're gonna do what we can as far as that, and I'm trying to help walk you through it as well. Brate not getting a touchdown last night killed you. Thanks a lot of Brady. AJ 4. You're close to punching your computer. I mean, look, jump in Discord. If you're watching on YouTube, right down below in the description, there's a link to the Discord. There are subs only channels in the Discord. You have to be subbed to Twitch to have access to those. I'm sorry, YouTube viewers. There are channels in Discord that are not locked to subs, but the majority of the people that are active in there and extremely helpful in there are members of the Twitch community. As you guys see, we have 350 viewers right now on Twitch, and a lot of those guys spend all day in Discord just trying to improve their game, whether it's improving how they use optimizers and stuff like that, whether it's talking about what they think are good plays or leverages or anything that they can do in tournaments. So I want to answer questions. So and if you're in chat right now, there's a link like right down there that takes you to Discord. So go click that link and go get in Discord. King, thank you for the 100 bits. Daniel Jones, Teddy Two Gloves, and Joe Burrow. You mean like rank them? For tournaments, I think Daniel Jones won. For cash games, I think Teddy won. And then Burrow's third on that list in either category. Teddy a lock in cash? No. I mean, I think Ryan's just as good. Don't know if you can take your chances with punting a tight end this week. In tournaments, you definitely can. In tournaments, you can, especially if you're building multiple lineups, because you can leverage the field. The other thing that you can do if you want to stay off of playing 3 really highly owned players in a lineup builder, 1, set a maximum exposure percentage for your lineups. And if 3 guys are at 30%, that's going to already be 90. And it's either going to try and stuff in some really low plays at quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, everything else, or you can build a group with those 3 guys and say a maximum at most 2 of Ezekiel Elliott and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then whoever you project as the 3rd highest played running back. And it won't put all 3 in any one lineup. Like you're giving it a rule. You cannot do that. So like you can give it both rules, and it'll definitely make sure that you're only going to end up with a max of 2. And it is what it is. Do you think you can play Hollywood Brown in cash? I think he's borderline cash game viable. I'm fine with him. Now look, cash games, sometimes you have to look at it like a last man in philosophy. So if you have the meta cash game lineup, you have best in slot point per dollar, high floor, high ceiling capability players at 7 of your 8 skill position spots. And you have X amount of dollars remaining. I know Marquise Brown's like 6,100 on FD. I'm not fluent in what his price is on DK right now. He is 6,300 on DK. Okay. So if we look at the wide receivers on DraftKings, if you have 6,300 left for a wide receiver, and let's say you already have 6,300 for a wide receiver, you're in this range, and you love every other spot in your lineup, you're not changing anything else in your lineup. You probably have one, in terms of points per dollar, you probably have one of DJ Moore or Robbie Anderson, depending on what projection system you use. So they're off the list. You could play CeeDee Lamb, could play Terry McLaurin, you could play Tyler Boyd, or you could play Marquise Brown, right? As a last man in situation, I don't hate him. I know that everybody still thinks he's just completely boomer bust. He's had no less than 6 targets in any one game. Now, the problem is the price is 6,300, where on DK, I probably need 15 plus points on volume for him to get there, and he's going to need a touchdown to do that. Where on FD at 6,100, I probably need about 12 points from him, and it's more touchdown oriented and less volume oriented. And with the way that he's utilized and the expectation in this game, I think that he is more cash game viable on FanDuel in week 5 than on DraftKings in week 5, based on all the players that are around him, right? Terry McLaurin, switching quarterbacks. I know that Kyle Allen's not good, right? I know the Rams are very good against wide receivers. I also know that Terry McLaurin's been a monster so far against Baltimore, and matched up on Peterson as well, and matched up on Slay in week 1. He's still averaging 19.3 points. And we have all the data last year, same quarterback, same head coach, with Kyle Allen throwing to DJ Moore. DJ Moore didn't struggle. Go look at his box scores last year, used on short and intermediate routes with some deep routes sprinkled in. So based on everybody else that's in his price point on DK, I probably am not going to utilize him in cash. I don't think it's a week where you're paying for multiple 6K wide receivers. I think the standard roster build is going to be pay up for those 2 running backs, sprinkle in a 3rd running back. You're going to have one punt like wide receiver, one 4 to 5K wide receiver, and then one 5 to 6K wide receiver. So I don't see you getting multiple 6K guys. And of these guys from 6,300 to 5,800 or 5,600, he's not anywhere close to the top of the list. And as tough as defenses are too, looking at the bottom, we've lost a couple of teams off this slate. Like, are you comfortable playing any of these defenses that are down here? Like, this looks like a week where you're going to pay up again a little bit more, because I don't think that there is an easy ticket. Like, I'm not totally against the Giants, right? If you think that the Cowboys are going to drop back 45 plus times, I personally don't think they're going to drop back 45 plus times. Arizona gets rid of the ball too early, but we know that Kyler can be mistake prone. The horizontal raid offense that they run in Arizona, he can fumble. Offensive line is bad. They can get pressure, can the Jets defense, but again, you're like covering your nose when you do it. You're like, I'm not going to play the Jets. Texans against Jacksonville, we know that they can get pressure on the quarterback consistently. They've done it every week. They just haven't had a good output, but look at the teams that they've played, and now they get Jacksonville, who's mistake prone as well. I'd probably guess that the Texans are the best or most played sub 3K defense this week, but like, I think it's possible to fit the Steelers. I think that the Rams are a great tournament play this week. I think the Cowboys are going to be played a lot at 3,100, knowing that the Giants are going to have to drop back and how tournament prone Daniel Jones has been. So I think those are mostly where people are going. Pascal fine in GPP. Yeah, his tournament percentage, his target percentage has been fantastic. It's climbed like every single week, and he's not great. Like, he's not an all-pro. When I say he's not great, he's not a Hall of Famer. He's not an all-pro. But you know what he is? He's a really good wide receiver who understands how to get open. He understands how to find space, and he always just seems open. You never see the ball thrown to him in a tight window. He's always just in space, and that is a good talent to have, especially when you've got a really veteran quarterback who just tries to pick him out, right? Like, that's what Phillip Rivers does. He throws to the open guy, and Pascal just seems like he gets open a lot. Connor, Hill, Gallup, all probably smash turning plays this week. I like it. I love it. Yeah, if we're looking for sub 10% players, those are all probably going to be sub 10% players. Like, Explain to me before lock. Do not come back here after lock and be the after the fact guy, because those guys suck. Okay? Don't suck. Explain to me before lock why Tyreek Hill can't have a 25-point DraftKings day. Right? Explain that to me. Tell me your reasoning why Tyreek Hill cannot have a 25-point DraftKings day, and he's probably going to be less than 10%. At most, 14, 15%. Right? I kind of said this same thing last week with Odell Beckham Jr. Tell me why he can't have a 25-plus point day. Tell me why Juju Smith-Schuster, y'all love Slay, tell me why he can't score 2 touchdowns this week. After the fact guy would be an awful superhero. Yep. Right? So what you need to do is reasonably and rationally find players that project at under 15% in tournaments, right? Doesn't have to be 0.2%. Give yourself some extension, 15%. Say even under 10% if you want to cut it down a little bit lower. Can this player who is sub 10% have 25 plus points on DraftKings in week 5? And there are definitely guys that are going to fit that mold. And those are the guys that you want. Will Slay cover Johnson or Juju? Juju plays majority of the time in the slot, and Slay never goes into the slot. So if you're the Slay is the best cornerback in the world, and I never play wide receivers against Slay because he's on the field, Juju won't see him. So if you want to play Juju, if you're saying that Deontay is going to be covered and you don't want James Conner because you think he's going to come in higher, and you know that people are going to play Ebron, so they can't play all the Steelers. Are we pretending we need to avoid Slay now? Since when? I don't know. YouTube replies. I feel like people overthink things. Instead of looking for the most obvious path, they overthink things. And that's how we get 3% owned Joe Mixon. That's how we get 3% owned Nick Chubb at home favored. That's how we got 3% James Conner, right? James Conner against Houston was 3% owned, guys. Coming off a 23-point week. Coming off of this week where he scored 23.1 against Denver. He was then against Houston. I wrote him up in Best Buys that week too. And 3% when he scored about 28 DraftKings points for 6,700. They're there every Eckler was that same week, right? That was the same week that Austin Eckler, and I was putting out, I put out those little videos on social, on Instagram and everything else. By the way, feel free to follow me on Instagram. There's a link down below in the description. Thank you very much. That said, people really aren't going to play Austin Eckler this week, huh? Well, Al, Kelly's there, and Kelly, he's the deal. They spend a lot of time. There's no way. I just can't see him scoring a touchdown. Why would they give the ball down? They're not throwing him the ball. 11 targets that week. Thought you were about to get the close up. I like to mix it up. So DraftKings has kind of made it easy for us, and FanDuel has kind of made it easy for us as a result of the pricing and a result of the slate, right? Elliott, massive favorite at home, really high total. Edwards-Helaire, massive favorite at home, really high total. Both of them 20 touch plus guys every single week, both included in the pass game. Ezekiel Elliott, running away with the carries inside the 5 lead right now. Everybody's going to have them. And if everybody has them, then they can't play other guys. And we ran through a bunch of other guys. Any hesitance having Teddy, Robbie, Davis in the same cash game? I'm not going to lie. Yeah, a little bit. Are we pretending that Carolina can't score 13 points in a game? But that's not, I know Atlanta's defense sucks, right? So like probably not against Atlanta, which is why we're considering, but it's more about cash games to me are more about, can this player produce the points that I need at the salary on volume without scoring a touchdown? And so Davis and Anderson or DJ Moore, depending on, if you like chocolate or vanilla, whatever, whichever flavor you prefer of wide receiver, those three guys can get there on volume at their price without getting into the end zone. Teddy has to throw 2 touchdowns. Quarterbacks must throw multiple touchdowns or run one in. And Teddy's been great with his legs this year. That's great to see. Do I still grind poker? Nah. Like, not at all. I don't enjoy having a leather ass anymore. It's not, I gotta do stuff. Danny Dimes, Slayton, Ingram, and cash is so sketchy, but man, does it fit nice. Yep, same idea as that other 3. The fact that Dallas didn't challenge that touchdown by Zeke last week hurt. Yeah, it did. That sucked. How do you not challenge a touchdown when you're losing late in the game? Like, we'll get in. And they did, so great. But like, you scored. Is a Cowboys triple stack a bad idea? Dak, Zeke, Coop, and Lamp. So that's an onslaught. That's 4 players. That's a quarterback with 3 players. That's an onslaught. I'm fine with it in a tournament. That is not for cash, though. That's fine in a tournament. It's way too high variance for cash. All your eggs are in one basket. You don't need to have all your eggs in one basket to win in cash games. If you're trying to win all the eggs, like in a tournament, then go ahead, get a big basket, throw them all in there. Any interest in Ian Thomas after what Tanyan did to Atlanta? I think he had 5 targets last week. I mean, I don't chase touchdowns. If you want to use Ian Thomas, you're using Ian Thomas not because he's Ian Thomas. You're using Ian Thomas as a leverage off of the fact that the other 3 skill players in that offense are going to come in at a much higher percentage. Davis is going to be the highest of the 3. Robbie Anderson, in my opinion, will be 2nd. DJ Moore will be 3rd. And if Thomas scores 2 touchdowns, he's going to come in at 1%. And if he scores touchdowns, those are touchdowns that initial 3 don't score. So you're going to get exposure to that game and to that team without, like, you're basically leveraging all the players that are going to be on the other guys, is essentially what it is. Like, you're like, okay, I think that Carolina's going to score touchdowns, but it ain't going to be the guys you think. It's going to be this other guy, which is great for a tournament, and it's also likely to fail. But when it doesn't fail, you win a lot. Right? And it doesn't have to be successful a ton of the time. Think about it this way. Of the Teddy stacks, this is the philosophy of how you have to think about that. Of all the Teddy stacks and tournaments, and like Teddy's going to be what? But can we just say maybe around 10 to 12%? Can you allow me that? So if there's 10 to 12% Teddy lineups, what percent of those Teddy lineups, and Teddy is the winning quarterback on the week. Let's say he has 30 fantasy points and he is the key to unlocking large tournaments. In that scenario, what percent of the time, or what percent of those 12% of lineups are going to have Robbie Anderson in them? What percent of those lineups are going to have DJ Moore in them? What percent of those lineups are going to have Mike Davis in them? And then realize what percent of the time could it be Ian Thomas, right? If the chances of Ian Thomas having 2 touchdowns in one game, or being the guy, right? Because to be the guy, you'd have to have that. He would probably have a 2% chance, maybe a 3% chance of scoring 2 touchdowns this week. If that, maybe it's more. But if he does, and the percent played on that is 1%, then it's 3 times more likely to happen than people are actually doing it. And those are made up numbers, right? Those are made up numbers from me of what percent he has to get 2 touchdowns in this game. But that's the philosophy you need to think about. This thing could happen 3% of the time. This thing is going to exist on 1% max of lineups. So, and when it happens, all the people that have the other dudes are going to miss out. So not only do you leverage the entire field, you leverage all the other Teddy lineups. And we could have included Johnny Widget in this argument to not have people say, you said to play Thomas with Teddy and it didn't work and you suck. I'm unsubscribing. Like, not the point. Johnny Widget. Right? That's how you have to think about game theory. It's not about good play, bad play. It's not about points per dollar. It's about what are people doing and what am I doing to take advantage of what other people are doing, and is the math on my side of this discussion. If a player is going to be played on 20% of lineups, but I think that that player only has a 5% chance of being on a tournament winning lineup, right? Has a 5% chance of scoring me 20 plus DraftKings points, I'm probably not going to play that guy because he's 20% owned, because he doesn't have a path to get there, right? So that's kind of, I'm trying to teach you guys the ways to think without names attached, because it is what it is. I unsub every week you make a bad call and then ask about McKinnon and Cash. Is the ceiling reasonably there with Carr at 5,300? I mean, quarterbacks don't need a ceiling. Right? So like, we've gotten a bunch of ceiling games this year because teams are ridiculous. So like, the Cowboys are throwing it 60 times a game and Dak's getting 40 fantasy points a week. That's a ridiculous ceiling. A tournament winning game for most quarterbacks most weeks is like 30 fantasy points. So 3 touchdowns and 300 yards. Can you throw for 3 TDs and 300 yards against KC? It's way more about cashing in on ceiling games from position players than quarterbacks, even though I know recently it's been Russ or Dak because they're getting 40 points a week because they're throwing for 5 touchdowns and 450 yards. McKinnon or must start against Miami? I mean, one of them's name is must start. You must start the guy who is a must start if he is available. Is Carr cash game viable? Yeah, borderline. I think if you can't stomach Daniel Jones, then I'm fine with Carr, but I prefer Jones because I think he has a better floor because of his legs. They both have the same expectation as far as playing from behind. Jones has a better matchup. The Chiefs defense is better than the Cowboys defense. I think Jones is the better play at a very similar price point. That doesn't mean that he's going to outscore him 100% of the time, but if you ran that simulation a million times of those 2 games, I think that Jones outscores Carr in those simulations. Do I allow double tight end? No, I don't. If not, how do you handle games like KC Las Vegas with Waller and Kelsey? So like, every optimizer gives you abilities to make overarching rules and to break them, right? So think about the Thursday night football videos that I do on like where we look at Fantasy Labs lineup builder. I mean, I'll bring it up to show you guys real quick, but I have to set it up first. I wasn't ready for this. Sorry. Settings, template, main slate, load. Okay. So these are the basics that I use, right? Whatever, here's just things set up. So pair quarterback with at least one of his wide receivers and tight ends, pair quarterback with at least one of his running backs from the other team, pair quarterback with no running backs from the same team. So we could exclude Carolina from that if you want to say, okay, well, you know, no running backs with quarterbacks unless it's Mike Davis, right? So that does that. You can build these overarching rules and then include them. So, we could say limit to exactly one tight end from the same game, right? And that also goes here with don't allow, like we can allow a flex tight end, then we go here and we build out our rule, unless paired with the quarterback opponent's quarterback from the same game. We're going to go with excluding only Las Vegas, Kansas City. Like you can build this in to your lineup builder and make it do what you want. Like you can build those overarching rules and then you can tell it's okay to break these rules in this particular situation. Would Evan Ingram and Dalton Schultz be another exception? Sure. If you think there's going to be 90 total pass attempts in that game, right? Where I'm not scripting for that, but sure, you could. Right? I mean, maybe you don't even need that. Maybe Schultz gets 6 targets and catches 5, and one of them is a touchdown, and he smashes. And then you're saying that Evan Ingram's going to be the catch-up guy, but you want to allow it. So yeah, you can allow it wherever you want to allow it. It's just up to you making the thing dance the way that you want to make it dance. That's the most important part. If you're using a lineup builder, and I know that a lot of you guys are using them for the first time in the last few weeks, to try and get good at using the mini-max games, the quarter games, the 10-cent games, the nickel games, which is a great way to get involved with mass multi-entry and learn how to do it and learn how to use a lineup builder, and have some good upside for a really low amount of money. I think we had somebody who tried it for the first time on Fantasy Labs on the Thursday night football game, and he said that he put in like $50 or $75 and he won $250 because he shared with like 30 people. But like, that's cool, right? You're learning how to do the thing. When do I usually finalize my lineups? Like Sunday before I go on the Anti-Tinkercast. So like it's Friday when I'm recording this. So Fridays, that's when I start building lineups. I post my head-to-heads usually either Friday after I get off this stream or Thursday night as I'm watching the football game and I'm at my desk. So that's when my head-to-heads go up. So I've kind of got like an outline of a cash game lineup at that point. I think I put them in this morning. So my head-to-heads are up. If people are asking, can I play you head-to-head? I've always got thousands of dollars in head-to-heads on both sites. So just go grab one out of the lobby. They're always there. Then I spend Friday doing my initial builds, building all my groups, building all my rules, entering 150 lineups, entering my 3 max lineups, all those sorts of things. And I enter everything Friday. Then I take Saturday. I spend all day with my kids. I don't do anything NFL. All day with the family, the wife and the kids. We just go do stuff. We go for bike rides. I get out of the house. I stop doing football stuff because I've been doing it for 5 straight days. So I get away. When the kids go to sleep, I start looking at things again because that's when Shefty does his Saturday night news dump, right? My kids go to sleep at 8 p.m. Shefty news dumps at 9 p.m. So I start doing some work. Then I get my outlines of where I want to go. You find out more about injuries by then a lot of the time. I X people out. I boost other players. And then Sunday mornings, that's when I get into doing that sort of thing. Do I play one cash game lineup? Yeah, I only play one cash game lineup. I'm fine accepting the variance because I want to win all the cash games. I want to win 100% of my head-to-heads every week. That's the goal, right? You're not always going to get there. Like, life's all about how you deal with plan B. Okay? It's just something to live your life by. Life is always going to be about how you deal with plan B, but plan A should be get all the money in a game like DFS. I'm not building a head-to-head lineup to win 72% or 68%. I'm trying to win 100% of the head-to-heads that I enter every week. But that's plan A, but life is all about how you deal with plan B. Right? I ain't going to win 100% every week. But you should be trying to. You should be trying to get the highest possible floor ceiling combos at every spot that you can get throughout your cash game lineup. And I'm human and I will make mistakes. And I don't always do that. And I do have losing weeks. And I have had losing seasons before. But my philosophies have, made me an awful lot of money in this game over the last 8 years. And I hope that those philosophies are things that you guys can take from these videos and these streams and implement into your game somehow and weave them into your daily and weekly process and be as successful as you can possibly be. So thank you for joining. I appreciate you guys being here. Look out for another video right here, and I'll see you Sunday morning on the Anti-Tinkercast on Twitch.
He's a legend.